Okay, here we're going to look at another formula we can use to work with circles. Now, it's not really a formula, but it is something that is particularly useful. This was certainly the way that I was taught to do circles when I was at school. And it's using these three ratios here. It's x degrees, so it's your angle over 360. That's equal to your arc over pi d, which is equal to your area over pi r squared. And we can use these formulas to do any question. We can use them to do arc length questions, we can use them to do area questions, we can use them to do angle questions, but more importantly we can use them to kind of calculate the diameter, to calculate the radius and other things like that. So this is particularly useful to do all questions in relation to circles. So we can use these to do all questions in relation to circles. So we are going to look at a few examples and see how this works in practice. Okay, here I have been given a section or sector of a circle. I'm told that the radius is 4 and that the arc length, is 32. What I'm going to do to start off with is I'm just going to write down my formula. So it's x over 360, which equals my arc length over pi d, which equals the area over pi r squared. What we can use this ratio to do is that we can use it to equate things and like solve. And I'll show you what I mean by that as we're going through. We are told that the arc length is 32 millimeters. That means that this angle, or this fact here, the arc, we know what that is, so we can tick that. We are given the radius in the question, which means that we could calculate the diameter, which means that we could calculate this down here. We could calculate pi d. We could also calculate pi r squared. We are looking to calculate the angle x, and 360 is a number. To determine which ratios we are going to use the ratios that have 2 ticks and a tick and a question mark. Just to make a wee bit of sense of this, if I were to say that Man United had the same number of points as Man City, who had the same number of points as Arsenal, that's the exact same as just saying Man United had the same number of points as Arsenal, or Arsenal had the same points as Man City, or just Man City had the same points as Man United. And we can kind of just ignore one of them because the fact still is true. So what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm just going to write down the two ratios that I am using. So it's going to be x over 360 equals the arc over pi d. So x is what I'm looking for. So it's x over 360. The arc length tells me is 32. And then at the bottom, pi d, that's going to be pi times 8. If I wanted to solve this equation to find out what x is, what I can do is I can just multiply both sides by 360. By doing that, it allows me to cancel the 360s on this side, and it will leave me with a case of I'm going to have x equals 32 times 360 divided by pi times 8. When you're doing this in your calculator, please put a bracket around the bottom line. Okay, so we're going to have we try this in our calculator. And we should find that comes to 400 and... oh god. Okay, let's see how we can use this in practice. I have been given a circle here with a radius of 10. I am told that the area is 75 centimeters squared and I need to calculate x. See questions that give you the area or they give you the arc length. That should be a signal that we should be thinking about using this ratio instead of just using the arc length or area formula. So first off, I'm just going to write down my formula. So it's x over 360 equals arc over pi d equals the area over pi r squared. What we're going to do is we are going to simply, to start off with, we're just going to tick what we know. We know what the area is. The area is 75. I am given the radius here, so I can calculate pi r squared. I'm given the radius, so I can also calculate pi d. I'm looking to calculate the angle at the middle. I want to find out what x is, and I know what 360 is. 360 is simply just a number. To identify the ratios that we're going to use, we use the one with a question mark and a tick, and the one with two ticks. And I'll explain what that means in a wee second. Imagine, if you just bear with me for a wee second, imagine that we were saying that Man United's points is the same as Man City's points is the same as Arsenal's points. That's the same as saying that Man United's points is the same as Arsenal's points. That's the same as saying that Arsenal's points is the same as Man City's points. So although these three things are equal, we can equally say that this is equal to this. So because we have highlighted these two, these are the two ratios that I'm going to use. So it's going to be x over 360. So my angle over 360 equals the area over pi r squared. So I'm looking for the angle x, so it's x over 360. The area the question tells me is 75, and that's going to be divided by pi times 10 squared. I want to calculate what x is. And if we see here, x is being divided by 360. I just want to find out what x is on its own. So the opposite of dividing by 360, to undo that, to change the subject to the formula to x, is I'm going to multiply both sides by 360. By doing so, that will allow me to cancel these down on this side. So to calculate the angle at the middle, it's going to be 75 times 360, and that's divided by pi times 10 squared. Doing that in our calculator, we need to be very, very careful that we put this thing on the bottom line in a bracket. If we don't, it's likely that the bracket is going to put the wrong emphasis on one of the calculations, so it's going to lead to a mistake. So if we were to do 75 times 360 divided by pi times 10 squared, that should come out to 85.94. And to one decimal place, that will be 85.9 degrees. Okay, in this example I've been asked to calculate the angle x, and I have been given the radius, and I've been given the arc length. So see, when you're given these pieces of information, if you're given the arc length or the area, that should be a trigger that we should be maybe thinking of using the ratio x over 360 equals the arc over pi d which equals the area over pi r squared. So let's look at what the question tells me. It tells me the arc length. It tells me this. It tells me the diameter. It tells me the radius, so I can calculate the diameter and I can calculate pi d. I know 360 and I'm looking to calculate my angle. I can also calculate this property here. I need to use the ratios where I've got two ticks and a question mark and a tick. So these two here. So I am going to make them equal to each other, and I'm just going to forget about this last one. So x over 360 equals your arc over pi d. So it's going to be x over 360 equals the arc is 10 over pi times 8. not going to be pi times 8 because 8 is the radius. So it's going to be pi times 16. And similar to how we solved the last problem, we want to get x on its own. So we should multiply both sides by 360. By doing so, I can isolate x on the left-hand side, and I'll have the formula x equals 10 times 360 divided by pi times 16. Making sure that you put that last line in a bracket so you can pop it in correctly into your calculator. And if we do that properly, we should get 71.61, and if we round that, it'll be 71.6 degrees. So we can see that we can use the ratios, the fractions of our circle, to rearrange and make some straightforward calculations. Thanks very much.